Good morning, New Eden. Today is March 6th, 2022, and this is the Federation Frontline Report, a podcast where we interview the players of EVE Online and go over faction warfare news. I'm your host, Frozen Fallout, and my co-host is Samson.
Good morning, New Eden. And today, we're going to be interviewing Ryann Beal, member of the Unlimited 2.0 Corporation and the Infinite Pew Alliance. How is space treating you lately, sir?
It is not too bad. I've kind of been dipping my toe in and out, but when I've been spending time in EVE, it has been a good time.
Nice.
Awesome. So tell us, how did you get into EVE Online? What was your introduction to this crazy world?
It was actually through a friend of whom shares a name with my character. It was probably early 2000s or so, and at the time I was really into fantasy games and wasn't super into sci-fi, but him and a couple buddies were playing EVE a lot, so I was kind of exposed to it there, created a character, but it never really went anywhere. And then it was probably 2000, I don't know, 14, 15, where I'd start picking up the game annually like many people do, but never stuck until I think 2016 or so.
Yeah, I've definitely had that same kind of experience. Mine was like I touched my toes into it in the beta and then like jumped in again in like 2005, and then in 2006 it finally stuck for me. I feel like a lot of people have the same kind of thing where they jump in,
Yeah.
you get lost in it at the beginning, or so you said you had friends in the beginning. Was it do your friends stick around that were playing the game, or did they end up dropping out of the game, and that kind of had the effect of you leaving as well?
So I left while they kept playing, mostly because they were doing stuff like mission running and stuff like that. And at the time, I was playing other games. I was mainly PvP focused, and other games just seemed to have more to offer more quickly at the time. But later on, I kind of over researched things. I'm a big podcast fan, so I just kind of dove into the Eve side of that, and it really sucks you in. And so I started doing exploration and kind of stuff like that. And after dipping my toe, really ended up enjoying it.
Yeah, so what are some of the things that you really like in EVE Online? Is it either you focused on the PvP aspect now?
Yeah, now and definitely sticking with faction warfare. That's kind of where I found my home. But prior to, like, because I did a little bit of extra research maybe than the average player, I immediately hopped into exploration ships and headed out to NPC nullsec, and
There you go.
kind of started doing that. Um, because I think Eve Uni was out there at the time, but because of my time zone, I wasn't actually able to participate in any of their classes or fleets at the time. So that's what drug me out to that area, but I stayed for the exploration because it's very good money and very low kind of skill right off the bat. Plus, it teaches you really essential skills about like descan, movement, and stuff like that I don't know, becomes invaluable later on.
Yeah, scanning is a huge part of EVE Online, and the more that you understand how to scan using descan and probes and stuff like that, is you can really up your game in EVE when it comes to most aspects of EVE, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, highly recommend that to newer players because you build up essential skills whilst making a incredible amount of money, really, for how much skill investment it takes to do.
So is that something that you're still doing today?
No, I think I've dropped that almost entirely because after doing that for a while, I went to Horde. Found out that nullsec is, oh, it's not for me. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
understand how people do that. I went on all of like one or two fleets. They were really, I hate to say boring. But I was like, oh, maybe the
No, it's
PvE
true.
out there is decent.
Nullsec
But
fleets are boring.
yeah, it turns out that you have to go 7 or 8 jumps just to start ratting. Oh, none of it really appealed to me. So eventually I kind of moved away from that. And then kind of got picked up by a faction warfare corp that had PI. So started doing PI to make money and kind of made a nest egg. And I haven't burnt through it just yet. Let's put it that way.
Nice.
So what was your first corporation that you joined for faction warfare, and have you been always in the Mimitar faction warfare, or have you been able to see anything around faction warfare? What kind of experience do you have?
So, because I based this character off of my buddy, he was always really into Caldari. So the first time I got into faction warfare was with the Cal Mill guys. Don't hate me. But yeah,
Don't have
but
me,
it
bro.
turns out that it was either a combination of my time zone or just the players around that kind of that war zone. They're not really invested or not very heavily. I don't know. There's not a lot of them around during late US time zone, it turns out. A lot of it seemed to be going on in the EU time zone, but I started there. But after getting kind of disappointed with that, I decided, hey, well, maybe, Minmatar would be my second thing, so let's try it out there. And so I joined Ushercon after joining Minmil, and at the time I was waking up early, so I was able to catch a lot of the European time zone fleets, and it actually worked out really, really well. And we still fly with a bunch of those guys today, so that's kind of where I ended up.
Okay, so yeah, so you got to see the Caldari, and yeah, I believe the Caldari are pretty strongly EU time zone, if I'm understanding the lay of the land and the way that it's been for a long time. And
That
I
makes sense.
I definitely really like that's one of the tough things about fighting the Caldari is that we are off time zones from each other. It is a really weird, but also almost makes sense because you're going to draw to the faction that has your time zone, and that's one of the bigger draws is having people to play with and stuff. Actually having groups and activities and fleets that are going out. And if it's outside of your time zone, you're not going to be able to get involved.
Yeah, and I kind of want to run this by you guys and see your opinion on it. But like, here are my general impressions of kind of each militia. So Caldari seem to be almost mostly ults of like bigger blocks, 0-0 guys. Bitter vets, kind of, they're not very inviting to newer players for the most bit, and a lot very EU heavy. The Galente seem to be more U.S. time zone, kind of like, I don't know, they're very fun-loving, like bombastic, just as like as a group. It seems like, but it almost seems like they put the jokes and stuff ahead of the game.
I
Amar
like
to me,
jokes, so sue me.
yeah, I don't blame you, but that's just my impression. Amar, I think I
We're
have the
all about
least
memes.
amount of, yeah, I think Amar I have the least amount of engagement with, other than just fighting them. But they seem to be more doctrine, fleet oriented, kind of try hard, more serious, like more spread out around the game. Like I know they have entities in 0-0 and also do faction warfare kind of thing, and like their RP rhetoric, in my opinion, is kind of like top tier. You're not going to get any better than
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Just and
They
then
they are the best PvPers out of the have just really made that, or not PvPers. They're
Gonna
pretty good
say,
PvPers.
please.
They're some of the best RPers,
RP,
role
yeah.
players. They got a huge role playing base that goes all the way back to like founding, the Providence stuff when that used to exist.
yeah, rivaled I think only by the min mill. But the difference is that when you're just cruising through a system, just moving through, you'll get like 3 or 4 things in local from a Mars spouting their ideology and stuff. It's awesome
Well,
to see.
Kaldari does that, or at least Diana Kim does.
Some of them do.
Yeah, and so min mill is kind of where I find my home. They're very on brand for the lore. Like you imagine Min Mill is like kind of like a ragtag group of guys, kind of disorganized, loose leadership, held together with duct tape and super glue kind of a thing. But they are easily the closest thing you get to small gang, especially in like the spread out hunting aspect. Like for instance, when we're in a fleet, it's almost like we might have like target callers and stuff, but there's probably 3 or 4 people kind of pinging through systems trying to find stuff. And we do joke around, but we kind of put the game, or Min Mill kind of puts the game ahead of that. So everybody clears comms automatically when stuff's actually going down. But extraordinarily fun-loving and maybe a little bit more mature than some of the other militias. But I really suits my playstyle and kind of the people I want to be around. So that's what I've landed on.
Well, now I'm curious. What did you think about our fleets?
It was definitely a blast, but let me tell you, like if you ever do that in Min Mill, you're gate camp. I don't think I've ever gate camped with Min Mill, but I know
Yeah.
these are definitely really fun, and I'm coming back.
Gate camping is fun, and then just throwing a fleet of cheap ships into Tama and just getting blown up, or finding some of the denizens of Tama, of which now I am slightly
Our
associated.
fleets are very focused on fighting pirates and other people, and then occasionally like catching the Keldari that are out and about.
Yeah.
Because there
Well,
really is
I mean,
no strong resistance.
I
from
throw
the
a net out
Keldari
there.
at the
I mean,
time.
I just throw a net, and there's actually almost, especially when we start in our staging system, there's almost always some Kaldaris coming through. But
Yeah. And as far as like war zones go, I feel like Windmill, Amar is much more actually faction warfare based. Like we have pirates, and actually I think we have better pirates than you guys do, because our main guys are dock workers. They don't
We have
drop
dock
stuff on us.
workers.
I've killed them out
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Those I actually really like those guys, because like whilst they
I like
might
them
stack
too.
things to their advantage,
I like their
they're
loot.
not going to drop a carrier on you very often, or
Nope.
like they're down to fight
we know
most of
those.
the time.
Yeah, we've had some really good, solid, like good fights between them. And
Yeah.
even when they're
I'm pretty
trying
sure
to
I've had
like
solo fights.
overpower you, you get to kill a couple of them. They're not logi strong. I feel like one of the things about Losec that I've been seeing a lot of is that as soon as you put logi in your fleet is when you become kind of the nasty
Drunk.
ass fleet.
Yeah,
if you
maybe
got
that
10
was.
plus with not logi, all of a sudden you're dominating the area until somebody drops on you with like a much bigger fleet.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, fair enough. Maybe so. We had a battleship brawl with them fairly recently, and I guess that might have been our mistake, because we had like T1 Logi here or there, and they brought a lift. So I guess we should just
Well, there you go.
keep the Logi at home next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is unbelievable how much small gang stuff I see that don't have logi, because 2 logi added into a fleet just like massively boosts your fleet. And from what we've been seeing, when we don't have Shinji out killing shit with us, like we
Yeah,
don't have
he is
the
best logi.
healing power that just is like you can. The thing actually that goes is that you can go into fights and not take any losses. And this is why I'm actually. I wish that CCP wouldn't have added logi into the game from the very beginning. Now that they're here, they're here. I'm not saying get rid of logi, but it allows for this like environment where you can go in and not a single person dies and the other side just gets slaughtered. No,
Oh, I'm pretty sure I've fixed that issue in my fleets. Somebody always dies, even with logi, especially the logi.
Well, that's usually because we'll get jumped on by a much bigger group.
Yeah.
But when we are fighting and we fight small groups and stuff like that, we've come out of many fights with no death whatsoever, and it's always like, oh my god, Shinji, you saved me at the last moment.
Logis.
Yeah, I actually wish we had more Logi in kind of our kitchen sink fleets, especially because like I have a decent amount of just T1 frigate Logi, because they're all super inexpensive. You get to work on positioning, which is kind of challenging, especially if you're kind of a newer player or inexperienced, kind of where I'm at. And they don't shift fights like cruisers for the most part. Like you have to be so close that you can't really outrange stuff very easy. You can be fairly tanky, but the amount of stuff you're repping can be punched through if you have like 3 DPS opposing your reps. So it's I wish there was more of that. It'd be more interesting, I think, because you could still punch through them.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what are some of the things that you really like about faction warfare?
I like that because I'm a more casual player. I play a lot of other games that I can just log on, hop in a fleet pretty quick, especially in Min Mill, and within 5 or so minutes get a fight. I mean, you guys have Tama, we have Amamake, but even if I have 10-15 minutes, I can just hop in and fight somebody. It doesn't take that much effort. Plus, if you do have more time than that, there's roaming around, there's plexing, there's a plethora of things to do, and the odds of you getting a fight is, I think, higher than anywhere else in the game, and that's the best part to me.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with how much just solo and small gang activity there is in faction warfare zones, and I think it is all because of plexes. It really just creates an environment where you feel like a player is going to be at one of these sites eventually. like,
Mhm.
so you can always plan around somebody's going to be in outer space flying ships and the one thing that I feel like is that a lot of the war zone is not utilized, which just kind of sucks. Like I don't know, in Mimitar space, does it feel like if you're really looking for good fights, you're gonna have to go to Amamaki, or do you feel like a good chunk of the war zone is actually utilized in the Mimitar space?
It's hard for me to say because I don't know the geography very well, but there are certain key systems that get fought over pretty constantly, and especially when something gets pushed a decent amount, it's a safe bet that you're going to find someone there willing to fight. You solo, it might be a little hard, but you don't always have to go just Amamake. In fact, we kind of avoid Amamake just as min mill because we one dock workers stage out of there, I'm pretty sure. But also, those are like everybody's gonna have a pod. They usually bring something very obnoxious to fight. I mean, Tama seems a little bit more, I don't know, engageable maybe. But yeah, we actually
There's a
tend
lot more
not to fight
solo
there.
artists in Tama, I think.
Yeah, Amamake is very, very similar to that. So actually, to get fights, normally you go to places like Vard, Dal. I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head, but there are other key systems that are constantly trying to be flipped back and forth, so we can avoid just going to that one system. I mean, avoid going to somewhere like Amamake just to get a fight.
Yeah, I guess I'm really impatient when I go out and I PvP. I'm always looking for like the instant hit of just like there's gonna be somebody to fight within the next like 5-10 minutes. There's a lot. I mean, even Notorious has a bunch of death and destruction. That's this this out of the way system, and I think that that's a lot because of faction warfare to a degree, and because people mine there. So just
People-
random, could find that
As-
out of the way system in low sec. Probably not a faction warfare system is a good idea to do that, but
Yeah, I think that might be a because you're closer to Jita. Because I've never, unless it's bait, I don't think I've ever seen anybody try and mine in a faction warfare system. Maybe an adventure, but nothing bigger.
Yeah, well, when the Taurus is so like out in the middle of nowhere. But I mean, I caught that poor guy with his ore strip miners on his. I think it was a procure. That was pain. That was almost a billion kill. He was just coming in. Like I got him on a gate by myself into Notorious. So Notorious is one of those like it's also like a point of attraction for for tourism because of the Notorious news.
Yeah, and it might be because I don't get out into spaces like that, or places like that in the Min Mill area that I don't know about that. But for the most part, I haven't seen or heard of something like that.
So Alice asks here, for how long does the Keldari Amar seem to have the upper hand in FW? So I can speak very strongly onto like the Galente side of the history of like how this has all gone, which is pretty much that the Galente in the beginning kind of dominated the Galente Keldari faction warfare. We had a lot of really old guard, solid PvP group when this first kind of kicked off. A lot of people that were joining the Galente were really, really good PvPers, and we kind of held that for years, it felt like. I'd been in and out of faction warfare, and the Galente, if they would lose the war zone for a little while, and they would take it all back, basically, after a short amount of time. It really has only been, probably, I feel like the Galente were at tier 3 and tier 2 for a really long time, until about, I want to say like November or December or so. And then the whole war zone kind of flipped. And from my understanding is that we lost a lot of really old school, like, badass PvPers and PvP groups. I know that Valoricords went over to the Mimitar, and there was just a lot of people just moving on to 0.0 and stuff like that, and the war zone kind of dying down for the Galente. Fed Up had a whole crazy thing that kind of happened where they started owning 0.0 space, so that kind of got them out of the game of faction warfare. and so we just didn't have the ability to kind of hold down all this space. But it's only been a recent event where the Keldari have been dominating. But do you have some insight into what's been going on in the Mimitar Amar war zone lately?
Oh
Ryan?
gosh. Being a normal, like, I'm not in any position of authority, or I'm not an FC or anything, just kind of a normal guy. But since I've been there, it's flipped back and forth. But anytime the Amar kind of come back in force, they are pretty dominant. They just seem to be more organized, probably have a little bit more industry set up. Um, but Min Mill, much more guerrilla warfare as kind of our tactic to fight back. But I would say out of the two, Amar tend to be dominant more of the time.
And Connect Down Under does point out a really good thing here, that bots do have a massive impact, and that there's always been a pendulum swing in faction warfare. It's never been one side completely dominating the other side, and it's very unlikely. Like, you might see that for like 6 months, maybe up to like a year, but it's going to swing back to the other side, because as soon as the market dictates that it is good for the Galente to be at tier 4, then it'll switch over to the Galente being at tier 4. And then, you know, there's going to be a push by the bots. Now, there is some... I don't think that they are the only... or not, I wouldn't even say that they're the really big thing that enforces who stays the longest, I think. Or who's on top, I think, is a lot to do with the corpse and stuff like that underneath it. But the pendulum swing, I think, is almost completely based on not necessarily bots. A lot bots are a big problem, but I think just market forces of, like, people are going to want to back the side and put, which I think they're doing it with bots. And some of the problem with this is that the way that they're influencing the war zone is by, you know, trying to flip who's on top, by getting all the discounts on LP and stuff like that. And then a lot of them, I feel like, are not actually out there, and you can see the massive amount of bots that are out there, and these are people that
And when
are just
you
farming the
when that
market, basically.
does happen, you can pad your kill board with bots. I remember for the first few months, I think, when I started with you in faction warfare, I was killing so many bots because there were just so many of them. They were just always there.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No,
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say, I hate to say almost, but at certain times it almost feels like the militia members have almost the least control about where the war zone goes and the way it flips. It seems to be the bots being the, top tier contributors on flipping, and I would almost put pirates under them, simply because as far as infrastructure goes, at least in the min mill side, it seems like the pirates have the most say over who can have structures and where. And
Yeah.
that affects the war zone drastically. Being able to reship, and being able to dock in a system you don't control is such a huge factor to whether or not you can stay and, deplex that system or plex that system, that I don't know, I think that's even more important than, whatever efforts your militia members are making at times.
Yeah, and at this point, I just want to say fuck snuff.
Oh God. Yeah,
So
so I do want to fly with you guys again, but let me share a really unpopular opinion. I actually kind of like Snuff, but hear me out. Hear me out. Okay,
the
so
guys that I fly with also like
so it's only because, like, they are almost the ideal entity to deal with, like, the Citadel spam that could have happened in lowsec. They're a pirate entity that goes out specifically to ruin your structures, and you can't really buy them. I mean, you can try, but people have tried to do that in the past, and it's not ended well for them. So, like, if there's been any one entity keeping the structures in control in lowsec, I hate to say, but it's Snuff.
it is.
I mean, it depends on, like, the thing is that they're being able to spam their stuff, or people that are friends with them are able to spam their stuff without any kind of problem, which is why there's still a ton of fucking citadels out there. So, I mean, the reason why I don't like Snuff is because they basically are controlling low sec, and when it comes to structures in a lot of the areas that I'm in, And it just is, you got to be in their special club, which I actually have been part of alliances and groups that have been in their special club to be able to have structures, and that's nice to have and stuff like that. But if you're in low sec and you're not fighting Snuff, you're with Snuff. So I feel like there's only really two lines to it. Either you're gonna try and kill Snuff. I mean, you can also just ignore them as much as you possibly can. But
yeah, which
I
is
feel
kind
like
of what
there's
we
really just
really do.
mostly, yeah. But I mean, basically,
Except
you're
when
either
they're not
fighting Snuff or
ignoring
you're
us.
not fighting Snuff. So.
Yeah, and I actually feel like that's where the Min-Mill Amar Warzone actually has an advantage, because they're kind of like on your guys' back step or back porch for the most bit. But like the worst we have is dock workers, and like I said before, they're not too bad. They tend to do interfere with us significantly less than maybe Snuff does. So that might be where that opinion kind of comes from, is I don't have to deal with them on that same level that you guys do.
Yeah, but it's also, I think it's just I don't know. I felt like somebody in Snuff got a bug up their ass about us and just like hunted us for a little while there. I don't know.
But yeah, no, it's definitely. I like that they're in the game. Let me take back that as much as we say fuck Snuff, and as much as I want them to play the game and I want them to do what they do.
Like I used to be annoyed with Revolution. I used to be annoyed with Shadow Cartel, but I'm like friends with people in those, corps and alliances or whatever now, and it's weird, especially today when you came on. You started streaming because I was in their fleet, and I was like, I think it was the other day, and they were like fighting you while I was sitting in their fleet, going, "Yeah, sorry guys, I can't help you. I can't shoot Frozen."
But yeah, MK11 points out here that so far there hasn't been the Keldari maintained high tiers since about November with not much swing by the Galente, that'll continue. I mean, like, Eve is a long play game. Eventually the pendulum will swing back to the Galente just due to market forces, I believe. And he thinks that the Gal Mill, I think in Gal Mill, Snuff is sided with the Keldari at this time. So yeah, I would say that I don't know if they'd side with the Keldari, but they've definitely done a lot of ensuring that the Galente have structures and the Keldari get to keep their structures. They're willing to work with Keldari to shoot down other structures. Now I'm not sure exactly why they're able to keep up the Keldari structures, but it definitely does feel like the Keldari have a little bit of a non-invasion pack sign.
Well, to Ryan's point earlier, or was it your point? Sorry, my bad. Maybe Snuff is working with the market. I mean, they got to make money too, right? So like, maybe they help influence, right? Like, they can help influence whoever's whatever, just be like, well, we want to make money off of Keldari now, so we're gonna make that work.
And yeah, so where do we think that dock workers fits into faction warfare? I love dock workers. I love the fighting that they do and the stirring up of just having another person inside of faction warfare zones that are fighting, but I don't feel like they've sided with one side or another, or as much as trying to manipulate like it feels like Snuff is. Where they seem to be much more of a good fight mechanism, or content inside of. But is that how you feel, or do you have any other personal feelings on dock workers?
I mean, for the most bit, yeah, and I think the reason is actually because the Amar are almost like a victim of their own success, because they're more organized, because they fly the way they do, and because they have significantly, from what I understand, more structures than Minmatar do. Like, I think I don't even know if Minmatar have any real structures in the faction Warzone. So Amar have kind of, if dock workers are going to poke somebody, it's probably going to be the Amar, because they tend to like like the small gang taking on a slightly bigger organized fleet, and the Amar provides that significantly more than Minmill does. Minmill, like fly frigates almost exclusively, except for recently we've gotten some decent fleets here and there. But yeah, I just think that we're more of a 2 to 3 man as far target. So whenever we see them, they're always in very very small groups, kind of poking at us, fighting us, and because of that, it's actually really fun for us. So yeah, we don't mind them that much at all. Granted, I'm going to preface this by saying, if there is a Minmatar structure owner that has been poked by them, I'm sorry, I just don't know about you.
And MK11 Gunner says John Revenant and his crew fly some good doctrines. Yeah, I've heard and have seen a lot of John Revenant's good doctrines, and they are...
John Revenant, yeah.
Yeah, I've had really good fights with him.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ran into him necessarily. Oh gosh, the one FC that I've ran into quite a few times, you had interviewed him maybe a month back or so, but I'm blanking on his name right now. Yeah, but they tend to fly Maguses and Deacons quite a bit, and yeah, we have a hard time punching into those, but good on them.
So do you have any cool stories, anything that you've done recently, or any cool battles that you've been in that you can think of?
Well, we had a battleship brawl with dock workers fairly recently. Shout out to the guy that it might have been accidental. Warped his mega into our ball at 0 when his fleet didn't follow him. That was really fun. We ended up killing, I believe, a Lashak after that was worth nearly 2/3 of our fleet, so that was really fun. And I guess very recently I was just sitting in a Plex and a Dragoon, and a Garmer tried to slide in on me. So that was a
he slid in
really
on you.
one.
He slid in on you. He really slid in on you.
I'm streaming, but I'm gonna give it just a little bit so that it looks like we're back up. Try reloading now.
It says live now, but it's blank.
Mine is loaded. I see us, so it should be recording.
Yeah, so I can hear us now, but I can't see anything.
Try doing a reload again.
Oh shit! And froze again.
Am I out again?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
Am I back?
Yeah, that was crazy. It was like one of those 80s, talking head things. His head went. Dude, are you possessed? Do we gotta worry about that?
All right. Well,
like we're back.
Let me get EVE Online back up and running, I guess.
Your horse knocked down a power line or something?
I don't know what happened. Evilness. Yeah, just quit out there for just a little bit. So hopefully we'll be able to edit that up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a live show. Stuff happens.
Yeah, live. It's live. All right, so
do it live.
Doing it live. Where were we? We were talking about
Ryan's fun stories. The last one, I believe, was the Garmer.
Oh yes,
and the fleet, the Megathron and Leshak, which all sounds amazing. But I think it was when we started before the show, and I was just like browsing your kill board, and I was like, "How did you kill a Garmer with a Dragoon?"
Yeah, lucky catch, I guess, and he slid in. I couldn't tell you why. Maybe it's because my kill board looks like Christmas. There's red and green everywhere.
I mean, that could be. Maybe he thought you was AFK. You never know.
Yeah, just unlucky, I guess.
Vath does have a good question here. What do you think of a pirate alliance solely dedicated to taking down player-owned structures in faction warfare zone indiscriminately? If player-owned, it gets blown up, period. I think that would be interesting to see you try to take down anything that is owned by Snuff or Shadow Cartel, or any of their buddies, or like Nisua Cartel. But that's one of the problems of being in. You have to be strong enough to be indiscriminate. So nobody's strong enough, I think, in faction warfare, or that would come to faction warfare, to be indiscriminate about it. But I would love to see that blowing up of all player-owned structures, and just seeing fights and battles over that kind of stuff. I think that'd be kind of cool. I don't mind. I mean, there's ways around the like having to have player-owned structures. You don't have to have them in faction warfare.
Yeah, it's
but
true.
we use them, and it's a convenience for sure to have them there. But nobody's powerful enough to come in and actually wipe out all the structures that are in faction warfare space.
Yeah, I feel like
people.
There might be, but I don't think they care.
Well, right, I don't think there's anybody that would. Period. Like, we'll see though, but I don't.
Eat your words. Goons are coming for us now.
Well, that's fine. Blow up everything, and I think it would cause more warfare, more fighting. People would. You'd have to enforce that type of thing, which means people in space. So. So what are some of the improvements that you would like to see to faction warfare? Is there anything from your point of view that you think could make faction warfare better, or any inklings of news that you've ever heard about what people might be thinking?
I actually do have a lot to say on this one. You have brought up kind of simplifying the LP store a couple times. I actually want to push back on that a little bit. I mean, as a new player, it can be a little intimidating. I do agree, but the amount of convenience that it does kind of give you because of the massive selection, I would like to keep that in or see it unchanged. But one of my crazier ones, and I've pitched this before a little bit here and there and gotten a mixed response, is in Novice Plexes, shut off implant slots 1 through 5 for non-faction warfare players. Just because usually if you're in a novice and you're brand new and someone comes in with a Garmer, kind of like that guy, and he has snakes in, the odds are so against you that it's, especially when you're trying to learn the game, very daunting, and you might find a ship that's seemingly engageable, but simply just isn't.
Not.
Yeah, just due to implants. And I know that might be like a coding hazard, but that's just pie in the sky, kind of a neat one. I would like to make missions kind of flatlined as far as LP, not affected by how the war zone's going. And then on top of that, keep the faction warfare missions in low sec, and then instead of having to kill one rat to complete the mission, you have to clear the room so that you're in space for longer, and it gives more opportunities to catch bots or just people trying to farm LP. Maybe, let's see. A big one, I think, is I would love to see if the beginning combat mission path for new players ended at faction warfare, where they put you on the edge of low sec, and then they basically take you through step by step on how to apply for a player run corp, with the inclusion of a heat map to show when your people are active. Something like that would have been probably the number one thing I would have wished for when I was a newer player trying to get into PvP, because I was always told nullsec and I didn't quite know where to go or how to find a corp and whatnot. But information like that would, one, get a lot more people into the militias and faction warfare in general, but two, make it so that people that do enjoy the game but want a PvP have just a direct line straight there.
Yeah, no, that is. I would really like to see that kind of interaction, like getting new players into faction warfare and teaching them the idea of just going out and fighting and dying and making money while you're dying in cheap ships. I think would really invigorate PvP in EVE Online, because I think one of the problems with EVE Online with getting people into PvP is that there's this whole wealth accumulation concept that you want to do. So you want to get into the biggest ship that you possibly can, do the level 4 level 4 missions with your big Dominics or whatever, or you want to go into 0.0 and you're going to be in an Ishtar and you want to keep that Ishtar as long as possible. If you can keep that as your one ratting ship for the next 50 years, it's like, that's awesome. Then I never need to change my ratting ship, and I can just make massive fist over fist on money. The focus on that kind of thing where you want to just have one ship or a few ships, that's why a lot of people, I think, quit EVE and stuff, is they put everything into one ship, they get ganked, and then all of a sudden, like, they cry that was the ship that they've been building for the last 3 years.
That's why I rage quit so many times. Losing a bigger ship, a more expensive thing.
Yeah, that or just through, like, if you do the little bit of research and you end up in 0-0 and you find out that's not for you, usually you've already moved most of your stuff out there and getting it back is super, super hard. So
Yeah.
yeah, something like that would really be very discouraging. And it was for me even at the time. Like, I'd put a lot of effort into getting out there just to find out that's not really where I wanted to be for PvP.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is nice that it's
Thankfully-
right on the doorstep of high sec.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, the Amara mid-mill war zones are a little farther away from the markets, definitely in comparison. But yeah, if you were to take new players, like, the amount of fights you can get in a newbie ship, especially if you have other people flying with you, and like the impact you can have, I think that would hook so many more people, especially if that's your play style or if that's what you're going after.
Yeah, I think that, there should be, like, if you're destined for PvP in this game, click, go down this path, and then it'll take you into faction warfare and take you through a tutorial of faction warfare. And yeah, I think that it would be really awesome if the tutorial really fed in and then extended through faction warfare. So once you got into faction warfare, it teaches you how to be a faction warfare PvPer.
What about like PvP in general? What about PvP in general, and like what about like PvP like pirating?
Yeah, I would think that
should there be an introduction to that?
I think that would be a much shorter, and it'd be a little bit different. I feel like faction warfare, you can really stretch it out as being like a career for them to stay inside of an NPC corp doing that. Pirating, I think, would be more of something that you would want to find, you would do yourself, or you would find somebody else to do. I guess you could do, I mean, there's room for that, I could see. And having, like, different branches of, the newbie experience of, if you want to join, if you want interested in PvP, you pick between, faction warfare, pirating, 0.0, and it would kind of give you like a path to where you're trying to go. And yeah, I don't know, that would be interesting. I think that's a great idea, though, that we really need to get everybody included.
Yeah, I feel like,
thank you so much for the subscription, Canuck. That's fucking awesome.
Thank you for the sub.
Yeah, I feel like most of the pirate organizations, at least in low sec, is that what you're referring to, or you're talking about like in general, like in 0-0 and stuff as well?
I was just kind of throwing that out there in general, because it's one of the things that you don't learn until you just end up in it, right?
Yeah.
Like you could totally
get pirated.
And yeah, you get pirated. Well, some people still don't learn. It takes a while, right? Maybe they just quit, or maybe they just keep throwing ships against a wall and feeding some random pirate faction. But it's just it's really, I'm not saying I want to like ruin pirating and stuff like that by making it not as player driven. I'm just like, I feel like there's no warning, so that's one of the reasons why you get some players that just quit the game, because they weren't expecting that. I mean,
yeah, it would be kind of interesting to give, like, just as a general tutorial on, like, here's what
I mean, we do have
high
safety
that'll happen,
right? But then the safeties don't help you in high sec. You still get ganked. So
There should be
Yeah.
a mission where you get a good amount of ISK and stuff, LP points and stuff. For they give you like a hauler ship and are just like, your mission
And you
is
just get blown up
to go to
by a random.
Losec and find
Yeah.
somebody to shoot you and kill you.
Lose it. Well, that's one of the things that is probably the hardest thing. The biggest learning curve of Eve is learning how to die.
Yeah, being comfortable with death getting blown up is a real hard one, especially when you have the feeling of having nothing, and then you also felt like you just lost the small little bit that you did have.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as pointing toward like teaching people about pirating and like kind of how the process works and why they do it might be kind of beneficial. But I thought you were referring to pointing people toward like Pirate Corps or something like that, like as like almost like a branching line. So like once you get to the to the entrance of Losec or whatever, you get to
Here,
choose
all the
like
pirate corps. Yeah.
or
that
yeah,
could work.
like here's the faction warfare or here the pirate. But I also feel like most of the pirate corps have medium, let's call them medium standards for entry. They don't
Mhm.
tend to
Yeah.
pick up
Yeah,
newbies
ours-
that often. Usually
ours-
that's kind of who they're preying on.
Oh well, yeah. Well, no, but that's I guess that's where we're sort of different. But we're also in faction warfare. We were just pirate, but we're like I think what our RP is kind of like we're privateers, because we
That
are
is what a pirate would
pirates.
say.
I'm not a pirate. I'm a
I'm not a pirate.
privateer.
We're
Arr.
privateers. That the Gal Mill have employed for the time being. But
I
yeah,
see you have the shipment we've ordered. We're just gonna take that off you.
yeah, yep. It's a Gal Mill shipment, so it's ours now.
Yeah, this is Gal Mill space, so that is now ours. That's how that works.
Yes. That's why I love gate camping.
Privateer.
Arr.
Yeah, but I don't know if you guys listen to other podcasts, but there is one called Less Than 10 that CCP Rattati and CCP Aurora were recently on, and toward the end heavily hinted at big changes coming to both faction warfare and structures. So I'm very, very curious to see how these two things kind of pan out and how it's going to affect the war zone. Maybe we even have a whole different system that might not even be plexing. We don't know yet. So I guess we gotta wait till FanFest to find out.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. I really wish I could go to FanFest, but I'm definitely not going to be able to make it this year. But it's definitely one of my high things that I want to get involved in and go to one of these years. Definitely going to make it to Eve Vegas this year for sure.
Bathrak, thank you for the sub.
Oh,
Yeah, I would like to. I feel like we have to go to Eve Vegas now. We have a freaking podcast.
yeah.
You know, we have an Eve podcast, an Eve Faction Warfare podcast. There is no other Eve Faction
And-
Warfare podcast right now.
It would be whoa.
Ho! We need
That-
Darude Sandstorm
You
to
just
play or
gave
something
us
right
a
now.
whole bunch of subscriptions. It looks like
I'm trying to count
gifts.
five gifted subs
Oh, that's
going
fucking
to
awesome.
Ichidan
Thank
B, Polynom C, Night Flyer, Hempshaw, Cal. Oh, take that one back. Take that one back from Cal. Cal doesn't need that. I'm just kidding. Thank you, Vithrak, for the gifted subs. Awesome.
But yeah, I think that I'm really looking forward to seeing what they say, because we've asked CCP to come on to the show and they're like, stay tuned. You know, we're not
Because-
sending somebody
yeah.
right now. But there, you
Talk
know, if
about
you
that.
hear, they said something along the lines of like, if you hear about something that's really big news in faction warfare, you might want to come back to us. And
Yeah. They've been hinting at it for almost, I don't know exactly how long, maybe a year and a half. So I have a feeling it's going to be pretty substantial if they're taking that amount of time to really flesh it out and get it working correctly. At least that's my hope.
I'm excited. Either way, I want to spotlight on faction warfare and the shake warfare, faction warfare up. I feel like it's getting to a stagnation kind of point.
It
and would be
blows
great. Oh, go
It
ahead.
blows my. I was gonna say it blows my mind because like faction warfare is the abyssal. It's like it's the abyssal dead space of the PvP world. Like the whole idea is to make it so that players can, for the PvE realm, jump in, spend 20 minutes, and then boogie out again. Well, faction warfare is that for PvP, which there's a stigma about EVE Online, I feel like, and I've heard this from, actually, I heard it from my friend just the other day when I brought EVE up to him. He goes, "Oh, spreadsheets online." It's like it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have
Spreadsheets
to be
and
big
space.
battles. Yeah, it doesn't have to be big battles. It doesn't have to be whatever nullsec is doing. You can pick this game up for a half hour and still get fights and have fun. You just need to know where to go. And I feel like
Hmm.
pushing that to the forefront will benefit the game in general significantly.
No, yeah, I completely agree. That is one of the things that, like, well, and I think a lot of people misinterpret what spreadsheets in space means. Now, there is the very basic kind of concept of it kind of looks like spreadsheets. So you've got like the overview kind of looks like a spreadsheet, and that's why it's called spreadsheets in space. But from my understanding is
There's
that
a
that's not
lot
where
of data in this game. Okay,
there's a lot of
as a
data.
web developer, looking at how much data is in this game, there are databases and then a lot of spreadsheets behind it.
Right, and what I also understand is that just to play the game, a lot of people, if you want to build something, you have to have spreadsheets. If you want to build an empire,
True.
you have to have tons of spreadsheets. Like, there's this whole concept that there's a lot of time actually spent in real Excel playing this game because you're trying to calculate out your profits. And that is totally a way to play EVE Online, is to spend, but I have not touched a spreadsheet for EVE Online in years, since the beginning, because in the beginning that is one of the things I did. Okay, I need this mineral, it costs this much, and I need to tally out how much it's going to cost in the end product. The industry in this game is fucking awesome, but you don't have to do that. You can go around and shoot people, and then it is still kind of like, it looks like a little bit like a spreadsheet, but
I agree with Fithrak. We use Google Sheets, not Excel.
oh yeah, Google Sheets. Yep. Nobody uses Excel anymore. That's crazy.
Yeah, I just feel like that opinion is so loud. It's almost a way to dismiss the game without even trying it for some.
It
because
is.
that's really what you hear, and it's a disservice to the game, I feel like, because you don't, like you kind of demonstrate, you don't need to do that. Like, I think the reason my perspective is a little valuable is because I'm a filthy casual in this game, but I still managed to have, it's still one of my favorite games, period. But I feel like people are turned off so quickly by hearing about, all the CEOs and people at that massive building level, because that is kind of, if you're looking at a podcast or whatever, that's really what you hear the most of, are articles. You never get to hear about just the regular folks that are having a really good time in this game, not having
Which
to
is
deal with
one
that
of
kind
the
of thing.
things that we really want to promote, right? Because we are those regular folks. We're filthy casuals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
even though we have a
You
podcast,
said
we're
it
really
yourself. We put our jokes first, man.
Yeah.
And we're here for the fun. I'm here for the memes. I'm here for the kills. I have a massive corpse collection. Wait, I have a problem. But it's just like, that's one of the biggest things, I think, is that everybody, when they see Eve, like, Eve has leaked onto my other podcast. I'm not allowed to talk about it on my other podcast, but it has leaked over when some of those really big, like, World War B things made actual video game news rather than just, internal news or whatever.
player
And
actions gets like there's like Leroy Jenkins for like World of Warcraft that I can think of, but like Eve, it feels like hits like the real life news a lot with like crazy heists, massive battles.
I think I've seen stuff on Forbes. I've read like articles about Eve on Forbes. Okay, so yeah, it gets big. But what I like, to his point, to Ryan's point, that's what everybody sees, and not everybody wants to be a part of that. So that could also turn them off right away. What they don't get is how much you can actually do in the game, and how much versatility there is, and how easy it is to get good PvP, especially in faction warfare, because you can just hop on in a frig in an alpha and you'll get a fight.
Yeah,
You
and I
might
feel like
lose, but you'll get a fight.
a lot of what, like, it seems like Eve players have in common, and this is kind of a marketing thing as well, is if you watch like any of the trailers or something for Eve, you almost think it's like first person flying kind of a thing, just the way the game is portrayed in those cutscenes. But like,
Yes, which
a,
I've
lo-
had. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of us though, like, we like strategy games and stuff like that. And honestly,
Mhm.
like, I don't think I've ever seen real game. Maybe I have, but raw gameplay footage in any of their like cinematics or how they showcase the game for marketing. But I feel like if you market this game to RTS players or that kind
That's
of
just about
crowd,
it.
they'd really really enjoy it because it's like a 3D version of that almost, and instead of many people and under your control, it's only one ship. But unless you're an FC or something like that, and then it's pretty darn similar.
Yeah, I would say that on an FC level, this is very much has a feeling of homeworld behind it. With depending on how big your game, your battle is getting, and it gets bigger than anything homeworld could ever, even think of. It just is the massive strategic value in this game is so huge, and the small gang strategic value is like unbelievable, unprecedented. I feel like in the gaming world, there's so much cool shit you can do in Eve Online with like 3 to 4 people. You get 3 to 4 buddies together, and you can murder, you can do some of the top tier content in the game, and you don't have to be ancient, with millions of skill points. You can or hundreds of millions of skill points. You can just have a few million in your pocket, and you can get 5 dudes that fly out together and kick some major ass.
Yeah, and like this, there's so much room for creativity within this space that it's like a lot of MMOs and even other games is kind of like gaming culture at this point to kind of math the fun or basically find what is the best in a certain scenario. This game has so many variables that that's almost impossible, and that's kind of special about the game, really.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And we are unfortunately coming up on our time that we normally would drop off here. So before we do that, though, and I think we'll get to the news and we'll get to the monthly report, possibly later today, possibly at a later time. We're gonna get the monthly report out at a different time, but unfortunately, both me and Samson have engagements, prior engagements that we have to do after the show here. So I think we'll move that on to another show that we'll do. But before we kind of leave, one of the things I kind of want to always open up to our guests is, do you have any shout outs or any projects that you're currently working on that you want to talk about?
Just shout out to Infinite Pew. You guys have made this game so much fun, and it's yeah. I wish more people could find communities like this. Just because I think a lot of people would enjoy themselves more. And also, just shout out to the CCP dev team. Their communication. I feel like we're almost spoiled, with how willing they are to communicate and just interact with their players. It's really kind of special, especially if you do play other games and see how much their engagement is. So thank you, and thank you to you guys for having me on.
Thank you
Awesome.
for being on, dude.
Yeah, it's been
awesome.
been great to hear your point of view, and I look forward to maybe getting you back on the show here again when we have some more time to we have lots of stuff to talk about, and hopefully the CCP drops a bomb on us on in May and can kind of really shake things up. And I would definitely like to hear what you would think of once we hear what CCP's doing. What your thoughts would that be on that? So.
And
Oh,
of
thank
course,
you.
you're
Thank you very
welcome
much.
in all of our fleets. Come out with us.
Oh yeah,
drink,
every Wednesday night.
kill stuff,
Everybody is pretty much.
die.
We're
Hey, I won a game camping ship, so I'll be
Yeah.
back. Don't you worry.
There we go. That's right. Well, you're the one that won my Gnosis, right? With like 7 kill marks on it.
Yep, that
Yes.
one.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, we gotta put
Gnosis
some more
gate
kill marks
camping.
on it.
It's the greatest thing. You got to get the Min-Mill to do that, man. Just tell them everybody get into a Gnosis.
I don't
The
think they'll be
greatest
too
ship
into
ever.
that. A lot of people
Yeah,
are
we'll
against
see.
gate camping, and I understand why. But that's also the reason why I'm all for it. Because a lot of people are against it.
Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this on up here. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. If you're interested in joining up with the war effort, you can check us out on In-Game Golden Age Stories. We are belong to the Federation Frontline Alliance. And alt spies, welcome, whatever. We're just out here. Just get your ship into fleet and shoot things and make it seem like you're helping.
Make an alt, come out, join us on our in-game chat, Federation Frontline. If you want to have contact with us, maybe come out with a fleet. We do it every Wednesday nights at 0200 Eve time. I have Gwen's Fleet of Death. Be prepared to lose ships. and we're working on more fleets all the time.
Yeah, and if you didn't catch us live on Twitch, we're Sunday, 2300 Eve time, 5 p.m. Central Time. If you didn't catch us live, you can always catch us on our podcast, Federation Frontline Report. You can get us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, pretty much where all podcasts are distributed. You can watch us, and it's interesting. I guess the podcasting community is going over to video more. So I actually, if it has a video option like Spotify, you can see
You
us
know what I
on
think
video now.
that is? I think it was the pandemic, because we're all like remote now. My other show used to be in person and went remote, and now everybody's remote, and so yeah, it's easier to do video this way.
And
Spotify.
if you have any news that you want us to get onto the show, get us an after action report. I have one that that we need to post. I totally forgot that I needed to post it for this one, but we'll get it onto the next show, or possibly in the monthly report that we do.
Yeah, there we go.
But we'll give you. I did already pay out for it though, but we just got to get it on the show. But if you got an after action report or any cool ass shit, we'll give you 10 to 100 million ISK per battle report, depending on the quality. If it's just a little thing here, but you've got a good blurb of stuff to tell us about what happened in that fight, we might give you some solid ISK there. You can either get that over to me in-game, Frozen Fallout, or you can email us at federationfrontlinereport@gmail.com. Thank you all for hanging out with us. This has been awesome.
Have a good night, morning, evening, afternoon, New Eden.